Hey, yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy, Evan, one half of MF Pearl. We got the other half sitting behind the cameras, making sure that we rolling. We got David back there.
Hey everyone.
Yes, sir. And you know what it is. Every Wednesday, live at MFHQ. Disclaimer. Live at MFHQ is in fact not recorded live. It's actually a pre-recorded program. This episode contains really explicit content, so feel free to do what you wish with that information. If you could be so kind of like, follow, and subscribe for me. We go a very long way. New episodes every Wednesday. Now back to the show. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today we have a super special guest who I can truly say is an inspiration, a motivator, and one of the words I wanted to put in there was a pacer. So whatever you want to call it, that's all good. But the innovation and work that he and his team overall has put into the music and entertainment industry here in El Paso is second, arguably, to none. The sheer scope of opportunity that has been provided to our community cannot be understated. But where does all this stem from? How do you achieve such longevity with a vision? And from what I've been able to observe, it may be from the masterclass of diversification that I'm witnessing, from entertainment venues down to residential properties, and even putting them both together into one. We are seeing an entrepreneur completely blend different industries into a complete idea that we honestly rarely get to see here in La Frontera. I'm very excited to learn about the uncertain beginnings, which are actually widely known at this point, but also the strategies and challenges that keep our guests still so passionate about the entirety of this venture. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, live at the HQ, we welcome J&K's own Johnny Escalante.
What up?
Yes, sir.
That
Yes,
was a good
sir.
intro, dude. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That hyped me up a little bit.
Had to make it big. Johnny, how we doing? How's this season of life for you so far?
So far so good. I can't complain, man. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it. I know me and you have known each other for a while. I've been following your guys' work too. Very creative, very good quality. Big fan. Happy to be here, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess we can start with maybe like one of the more recent things to kind of kick us off. But you guys just recently completed the Boiler Room project, which was, I'm pretty sure it had a long list of tasks and things that needed to get done in order to make it happen. What is that experience like? Because you guys have a lot of those. Can we talk a little bit about the hindsight of it now?
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it from when we started to now, Boiler Room's been around for a minute, and it's a brand that we've really looked up to, really admire. They do a lot of cool shit worldwide. So for them to reach out and not only highlight or want to do something in El Paso, which was already a win at the scale that they wanted to do it with the live broadcast, but to want to work with us was like a blessing. So it was like I had put a like an Instagram caption about like the younger me would be proud, because when we started, if you would have told me, yo, you'd be working with Boiler Room if you keep doing this, I probably wouldn't have believed it. So it was awesome to put that together. And yeah, you're right. It was a lot of work, and we had a lot of obstacles. We had another larger block party scheduled for the summer with Fisher that got postponed because he had a baby on the way, and some things happened with that forced us to move some dates around, which was really difficult to do with permitting. And so what seemed as impossible or extremely difficult at the time ended up working out, and we're happy with it. We're happy with how it came out, and it was a blessing, man. I have those T-shirts. I bought like a T-shirt of every single one that they were selling, and I kind of do that when an artist has merch and they bring it, just to kind of have those memories.
Yeah.
So actually, I was thinking about wearing it today.
Now we pull it up, collars.
Yeah,
Collar boys.
it's getting cold out there.
A little bit. When it comes to those shirts, do you like keep them organized all together, or do you have like a sprawled closet?
No, so I do have like all my like concert show merch kind of separated.
Okay.
So,
Relics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when I go to a festival or a concert and I buy something, even if it's not our own show, I'll buy something and I'll have it all stored away. Now with how popular vintage and everything's, I think it'd be cool to look back in a couple of years and
Yeah.
just remember those moments.
Man, if we scale all the way back to day one, in a short answer, how many years has J&K been in operation?
Man, it's been about 14 years.
14 years.
Yeah.
From
been a minute.
year 0 to year 14.
From day one to now.
At what point do you think you can comfortably say Boiler Room was always a dream, but at what point is like Boiler Room something that like your platform, your business, your understanding of it all can like fathom making it happen? Like you understand the logistics of it and all that. Like how long does it take to get to that point where these dreams are reachable at this point, and they're more just goals at that. They're more goals now.
It depends. Like the confident me would say that that was always kind of a thing. I was always kind of like you know, I think I can do that. But realistically, I probably would have said no chance. How we started in a club, booking like, you know, Vegas DJs, open format, not really a name like you see now, like the EDM or hard ticket sell. They call them like hard ticket sales, like relying strictly on the name to sell tickets, more of a concert. It was more of like a club party. But yeah, it took about probably 2 to 3 years for me to like look at it and be like, okay, this can be like a job. I can make a career out of this.
Yeah. In those 2 years, I read the article with the city that you guys would sometimes even feel like you were maybe even getting a little, maybe thinking that the owners could like finesse you guys a bit because you guys were really young at that time. Um, so, damn, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We started, I was, 21 maybe, barely turning 21. So it was just a big party back then, right? So it wasn't really like a business or something that I was thinking about doing as a career. I was still working construction at the time with my family. And I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do, you know. I was always drawn to music, but staying in El Paso and deciding to go to UTEP, I think like that idea kind of closed because I envisioned it more being like a music manager, even like a sports agent at a time was kind of like a thing that I thought would be like a cool thing to do.
What'd you go to UTEP for?
Bachelor's of Business Administration, I think. I don't
Okay.
even remember, honestly. I was not the best student.
Nah, you got it done though.
I got it done.
Hey,
I graduated, yeah.
there you go. Um, Music management is what music or sports agent is what you're envisioning as you're going through college, or that's what you thought I guess would be possible, just kind of like loosely in the air, or like I'm asking like the intention. How intentional was that?
It wasn't, I was always drawn to music and sports. I think like any kid, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
for
wants
sure.
to play like for the major leagues or the NFL or concert promotion was,
Yeah.
we loved going to concerts and festivals growing up. So I think being in that scene, like any kid, of course, wants to be a professional athlete. So I obviously knew at an early age that I didn't have the genetic capabilities to be a professional athlete. So I, had the idea of music, but I never really pursued it. It was never like a real goal or a real ambition. It was just kind of like that would be fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With the management, has that ever been something that you guys may have even for a bit dove into with J&K? I feel like there was a lot of opportunities too, like to do so.
No, never.
Not even close. Dang.
No, we thought about it. I've thought about it a few times, to kind of dive into that music management. And obviously, throughout the years, we've met a lot of talented artists,
Yeah.
and the ideas come up. People have asked us if we could, possibly help them in their career or guide them in a certain way. And I just feel like at that time, and it's changing now a little bit, but at that time we were still kind of growing our brand, trying to figure it out. So it was always like I felt like I wasn't gonna be good to give someone else advice when I was still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's still something that's in the back of my head. I was always drawn to business as a kid. I always liked the hustle.
Yeah.
I was in sales at the construction company with my family, selling roofs, and even before then, I would, throw house parties in high school and just
Make
have a
some
little,
dollars off of it.
yeah, just have little
Yeah.
side hustles here and there. So I knew being in that side would be, cool.
Yeah.
But now, I think that we have, a big enough network. We build relationships in the industry that if someone were to come and, the right opportunity came, I think that might be something that we might entertain a little bit more now. That's just a whole different business that we don't understand quite,
Yeah.
fully. But yeah, that that process is, or that thought, that idea, that makes sense from where we're at, right? So it would be like you said, like a small pivot.
Yeah.
And we do want to highlight El Paso's music scene, and if we found an artist that we truly believed in and we can help grow, I think that's an opportunity that I would for sure look at.
Man, um, I feel like though at the same time with all of the booking, you've probably gotten a chance to see a little bit of what that entails to be the music manager. Because I'd imagine that once you get to a certain tier of artists, and I'm not too sure about the electronic world, but I'm pretty sure just about all these artists are being managed to an extent. So you're hardly, am I right to say that you're hardly talking to the artists a lot of the time? You're talking to the managers more?
Yeah, it's mainly the managers and the agents. Yeah,
And are you also the primary person for booking these days?
yeah, I'm pretty much on every email still.
Okay.
And but yeah, during COVID when everything kind of got scary for a bit, and I was just like, damn, what happens if I lost it all and had to start all over? And I remember working on my resume once when we were all locked down and being like, damn, like, what could I do? Like, what would be something that I could get hired at, or
Yeah.
get a paycheck at? And so that was one thing that crossed my mind. Like, man, maybe I can go work for an agency, or a management company. But I have a lot of friends now that are agents and managers, and those guys work a lot. They're always on their phones, they're always traveling, always on emails. And I've always been good with emails and saying semi-organized. But I've have been blessed to be able to work for myself, and sometimes those guys are full-time grind. But yeah, shit hit the fan, I would for sure entertain going to the agency route for sure.
Yeah. Um, what is the experience generally been like across all these years? Like, has the experience with all of these big figures within music that are making all the moves happen? Has the experience just gotten more pleasant as you've learned more, or as you start talking to also more experienced people, it still becomes like a tedious task? Maybe it's never. Maybe it's not even like a hard task at all. Maybe this has become just like a really easy thing, like an easy process of like booking and like working with like touring artists.
Yeah, no, building a relationship with agents and artists, managers has been, that's what it is. You want to build relationships with these artists. You want to
Side
build.
question. Side question. Sorry. Um, are a lot of the relationships these days like new ones now, or a lot of these now just like ones that have already been ingrained? Like, what does that look like ratio wise?
Both,
Okay.
both. So there's agents and managers and artists that we meet for the first time and start working with for the first time. There's some that we've been working with since we started, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And in the music scene, even in the bar scene, like I feel like representation gets moved around a lot, right? So you can be happy with one manager, one agency, and you can switch to another agency or another manager. And a lot of these agencies, managers get bought up too sometimes, right? So, like I remember in the beginning, it was like AM only, and then AM only turned into Wasserman, and then Wasserman turned into, well, it's currently Wasserman, but William Morris and, UTA, like a bunch of these agencies have artists that sometimes some big headliners with them, and then next year there was someone else. But it's sometimes the same people, same agents. And also, there's agents that started in the mailroom, interns, kind of like the movie Entourage or the show, and they make their way up, right? And there's also, agents who sign a young act and that act blows up, and now this agent's a big dog, and now he's signing other artists. So yeah, it's new and old, and it's just throughout the years we've been able to build a relationship with these artists and these agents, and try to provide a quality experience, a professional experience where all sides are happy. And I think when it comes down to dealing with agents, it's not stressful. It's not necessarily good or bad. I think, at the end of the day, it's a transaction, right? So they want the most money and the best look for their artist, and we want the best look and the best deal for our show. So it's basically you're making a contract, you're making a business deal per show, trying to, figure out, what is the market, what are they into, how much are they willing to pay, what else is going on. And yeah, it's like a lot of moving parts to make a show happen behind the scenes.
Can I ask? Electronic music is the primary genre that J&K usually works with, but would you say that that experience goes across all genres? Because I know that you've had some time with different genres as well, even if it's for a brief moment or not. Is it safe to say that electronic is the only genre, primary genre,
It's the primary genre for sure,
but not the only?
but not the only, I wouldn't say. every different genre has its own different kind of
Yeah.
obstacles or challenges. But at the end of the day, it's the same transaction, it's the same deal, it's the same routing. The venues change, the production and equipment changes. The deal structure sometimes is a little bit more complicated when you have a band or when you have make a production that you're traveling with semis. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same transaction.
And then I don't know if it's left turn or not because it's more about a little bit about Lost and Found. Lost and Found has evolved to just sort of be a venue for shows.
Yeah.
Can I ask about why? Like, was it just not is it more profitable to do that than to just have it open for just regular hours? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yeah, no, it's a great question to ask. Lost and Found has been around for what, 4 or 5 years now, and Lost and Found opened at the height of Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati was really popular at the time.
So you think it's gone down since?
Cincinnati has yeah,
Okay.
100%, and I think every bar owner on that street would agree, or venue owner, or just.
Yeah.
And there was several obstacles that the reason why that happened. There was some stuff with the city. There was some stuff that was happening that the local community wasn't a big fan of. And in this industry, it's there's a lot of waves. There's a lot of ups and downs, and trends change, and things change. So when we closed Lost for COVID, we really had a built-in neighborhood kind of crowd, right? So we were not only popular on the weekends, but we were popular during the week with the neighborhood. And when COVID happened, that completely died down. And when things started opening back up, a lot of the weekend warriors, people that go out Friday, Saturday, there was like a percentage of the population that didn't care. They were going to go out whether they, were scared to keep their distance or not. But the happy hour crowd, I think, was a little bit more hesitant. They probably had kids at home. They probably had, jobs that were a little bit more strict or whatever the reason might be. And at the same time, we've always done shows, but we've never had a venue. We would always book at someone else's venue. So Lost and Found lent itself with its like patios and layout. This was before Hush Hush to be able to do these shows. So when we started doing shows at Lost and Found, they were extremely successful. And so the more challenges we had with Cincinnati as a whole and with operating on a daily basis, we just found that it made more sense for us to just open for shows. And so we kind of tested that out for a bit to see, less of a headache opening up, 6 days a week. Let's just open for big shows, set up for big shows. At the time, we were also building Hush Hush. And, when you open up a new venue, there's a lot of moving parts as well. You have to kind of stabilize it.
So your guys' attention was just like so split up.
Yeah. So what we did is we kind of came back down to baseline. We focused on the shows there. And that ended up kind of turning into its own thing. So it just goes to like, things happen and you just have to figure out a way to pivot, stay creative, try different things to see what sticks. And Lost and Found ended up transitioning into that where it actually got more popular in that world, right? So we had like agents and managers like asking us like, I have this artist that really wants to play that room, send me a hat, send me a jacket. So it started becoming like a name for that. So then that's when we leaned into it and we're like, okay, this is working. And it made sense for us too, as promoters, to have a home base that we can program these shows.
Prior to that, before it becomes apparent that it's the right move, was there some frustration behind trying to accept like the summing it down, or was it a pretty seamless process all the way through?
No, it's never seamless. Nothing in business is seamless. Yeah, there was a lot of frustration.
Okay.
1,000%. It feels like every door is closing. It feels like it's not making sense. Like you have these speed bumps and you're not understanding why. And from an outsider's perspective, it might be like, oh shit, like that was easy or whatever. But behind the scenes, it was very frustrating, very hard. There was like a time of like, as an owner, you don't want to say that there was like a time of identity crisis, but there's definitely a time of like a brand repivot to see what works, right? So we did have a lot of questions. We were, not sure what direction to go, business wise, cost, production. Does it make sense? Can we pay the rent? Can we pay the bills? Can we keep the managers and staff on payroll? So all those questions you have to kind of figure out behind the scenes while trying to see if shit works, right?
And you can't even like. I'll let you go. Hold on. I have another.
No, yeah, there's no like Excel sheet that you can kind of figure out if it's going to work, right? So there was a lot of frustrating times, a lot of like, what are we doing moments. But yeah, we just, kept our heads down, kept working, kept trying new shit, trying to put out a quality product. And luckily it worked out.
You can't, and I feel like you can't really express a lot of that frustration that's going on behind the scenes, like even on the personals and stuff. Because I think sometimes, I've done so sometimes when I feel like I'm a little frustrated with where certain projects are going and stuff like that, and I feel like I've been a little too open, like with some thoughts sometimes. So, do you feel like you got to be a lot? Do you feel like, uh, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you feel like you embrace the behind the operation, like staying behind closed doors? Does that
Yeah,
make
I
sense?
mean, yeah, so it's like, I'm open-minded, I would say. I'm open to exploring different ideas, different opportunities, different, ways to navigate certain situations, right? So it's like we know what the end goal is or what we want it to be, and it's like let's all figure out how to get there. And I'm open to whatever solution that is. There is a lot of things that you have to kind of keep to yourself, and it's like the Steve Jobs mentality of like keeping everything super secretive. So of course, there's a lot of intellectual, stuff that you want to kind of keep to yourself. There's a lot of thoughts, and you know, I've gotten better with this over the years, but like especially your negative thoughts, right? You don't want to be so open with them. Everyone has them. We're all thinking it. But you don't want to have those thoughts with your team. You don't want to portray like this lack of confidence with certain people. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit better with that, navigating those emotions, figuring out what to keep to myself, what to be open about, what to discuss with the team. Some projects are better to collaborate with, and some projects are better to figure out on your own. And that just comes with time, I feel.
Uh, Along with the entertainment industry, side question though, because I did before we exit that. I just want to get a little bit of insight from how you guys view the idea behind opening different venues that I guess I'm already, as we talked about Lost and Found, and knowing how like it pivots into this new, like a niche sort of venue, not niche, it's a venue, but it it,
But
it
yeah, it's geared
evolved.
to it. Yeah.
uh I want to ask, are you guys ever concerned, especially, okay, this is a better one because later and Hush Hush are right next to each other. Are you ever concerned about cannibalism in a way with your own venues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's like a valid conversation or a valid, thought for everyone. And it stems back to, there's multi reasons why things cannibalize, right? And there's like the market is only so big, and El Paso is only so big, and the entertainment sector is only so big. So, how much can you grow? And if you grow, how do you also grow your audience to where you're providing a different experience enough to keep three, four, five, six venues full, right? And if you're selling the same product in four different venues, it's going to be hard for you to grow that audience. And so, with every venue that we've done or every experience that we've done, we try to keep that in mind, right? And so, how do we do that strategically to where we're growing, but we're growing our audience, we're growing the consumer, we're growing the experiences, we're not just taking away from ourselves. And I don't think that's the goal. And I think that challenge it's extremely hard to do in El Paso. I have friends in bigger markets that are able to open up two, three, four, five, six spots, some of them right next to each other. And just the market's so big,
There's more tourism.
more tourism. There's always something coming on. There's a game. There's a sporting event. There's so much going on, and people are coming in, for work and leaving, and just there's just more people, so they can afford to do those things. But everyone there's a market cap for every market for every concept, and so yeah, we're very mindful of that as we try to grow and expand. If it were up to me, I would have you know a lot more concepts, a lot more things, but we just can't open them up and expect them all to be busy. It just doesn't work that way for us. For some, it might be a lot easier, but for us, it's been something that's on our plate.
Is one of the solutions being, how can we increase tourism in El Paso? I've,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. So I've been a part of, the downtown management board. I've been a part of the El Paso tourism board. I've tried to do my part of like my community service, getting involved and seeing what we can do. Um, you know, and so I've kind of understood that world a little bit more, the tourism, politics, just the, local economy and how it works in a way. And, there's so many moving parts for that, right? So I think El Paso's on the right trajectory. It's getting there, but it needs a lot. It needs a lot to get us to a big market. And, serving my time on those boards and meeting, certain people and different people from different industries, it's it was very eye opening for me being like this, young guy that's trying to like create things in the city and make it more fun and exciting, and what my definition of that is. And wanting the big concerts, wanting the big restaurants, wanting the big venues, wanting the big apartment complex, just I like the big city feel. And there's a lot of people that don't like that, and they don't want to be a Phoenix, they don't want to be an Austin, they like the community the way it is, they like the mom and pop shops, they like the local feel. And that's okay, but everyone has different visions and different ideas of what they want their El Paso to be. So I think El Paso is having this growing pain, and it has for the last couple of years, where there's people that want progress, they want change, they want big, they want shiny, and there's some people that don't. You see that happening with like the arena downtown, and you see it happening with different and that's something that's kind of turned me off a little bit to politics. And they always tell you as an owner or business guy, like, don't get involved with politics and religion, and now I see why, right? So.
Yeah.
No matter what side you're on, there's going to be someone else that strongly opposes whatever view you have.
Yeah. Are there any, I guess, big projects and big signs of progress within El Paso that you're kind of, that's whatever, Or are you generally like, no, I'm for every single new idea? Or do you find some sort of grace within that old style feel that, like, do you find yourself balanced, or do you lean one way or not into politics, but into like where we're going as a city?
Yeah, no.
Like the
So,
concepts of it and all that.
again, I don't want to say anything and, upset certain people or that I'm leaning a certain way or whatnot.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
and not that it's that big of a deal for what I'm discussing, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I have a vision of, what I want the city to look like, and to get there, not everyone's going to agree on what that is or what they want, if that's even good for El Paso. Everyone has different tastes,
Yeah.
Everyone has different ideas of what they want their thing. And it all changes, like when I was in my 20s, I was thinking a certain thing was what I wanted. And now as I'm getting older, then I'm starting to think, there's different, elements of entertainment, quality of life that the city needs, that the city should have. So I think that all evolves. But like, yeah, I want the city to grow. I want it to have bigger, better paying jobs. I want it to have better quality of life. We're positioned in like this beautiful little like border town that has this access to Mexico. We're close to New Mexico. We have amazing shit all around us. Like we're in the mountains. There's white sands. There's Marfa. There's like this weird saying that people are like, Austin's moving west, like Weird's moving west, and you're kind of seeing that energy a little bit, like in the West Texas kind of realm. So I do think El Paso's positioned in a very, very, very cool area to be able to do cool shit for quality of life.
And that we should go forward with it.
1,000%. And that, like I said, that idea is different for everyone, right? But the idea is to have someone or have something for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what you're into, from comedy clubs to parks with the kids, there should be something for everyone, right? And to have something that's sustainable, that can survive and profit and be able to support these investments, we need to grow the local economy.
Yeah.
Do you think there's like an identity crisis or a little one in El Paso?
With the city?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, 1,000%. Yeah.
Do you think that's recent?
No, I wouldn't say it's recent. And El Paso's always had like this crabs in a bucket mentality, I feel like. It's been very competitive with itself, where it doesn't want to help each other grow. It's almost like you kind of feel good when someone doesn't succeed. And that sounds shitty to say, but I felt like for the longest time it's had that energy, right? And so I think now that's changing a little bit. And I hope it does, that you want your partner, your competitor to kill it. You want whoever, even if it's your direct competitor, to go open up in an Austin and New York or wherever and to crush it, right? You want the, like Texas Monthly just featured 3 of our, taco places. You want to cheer for those people, even if you're competing with them, right? You want to cheer for good shit, for quality in every industry. And I feel like El Paso has always kind of been a little hater, It's got like hater vibes to it a little bit. And I feel like that needs to change, culturally and, just people's point of views, for us to kind of go to that next step.
Kind of to segue from the cannibalism question, do you think by recognizing that we only have so much market, has that helped inspire you to get creative with different concepts, such as the residentials? Or do you think you've always had that itch as well? Or does that come from like the roofing? Like, okay, if we open up another venue, you know, like it's gonna be hard. We can't like you said, if you could, you just have all these concepts and experiences plotting around. But do you think by being conscious that I mean, we can't just do that. Like it's got to pace. It's got to be at its pace. Has that inspired you to think outside of the box on how you can create experiences that like really stray away from all the similar ones, the venues?
Yeah. So I think, you know, going back to later, which is our first one, it was kind of like in this house, and it was, you know, not necessarily, you know, it was a house, so it wasn't even commercially fit. So we had to do all that, which was a lot extra work. We could have gone to any shopping center and just got in a place, in a commercial place with parking, and we decided to go the hard route. And it wasn't necessarily that it was a hard route, but we just wanted to create that unique experience. And so yeah, having that construction background, I've always been kind of drawn to remodeling and flipping and seeing how all those things work. And I've also had like this, you know, like I've always been drawn to, you know, architecture and house building. You know, growing up, I remember my dad used to work for a big home builder in town, and I used to drive with him on the job sites and go see houses get built from dirt lots to final product.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool, you know. So having that, you know, in me, I was able to look at a later or a hush hush and not think it was that crazy of an idea to convert it. And yeah, like you said, it's having that kind of curious mind and being a little bit, you know, ADD, or knowing that we're not necessarily like tapped per se, but like there's only so much, or you know, you can do. I've always wanted to stay busy, so that's kind of how I started doing the residential remodeling and the flipping and getting into like the real estate stuff a little bit. And it kind of went hand in hand, you know. Designing a bar and designing a house, it's kind of the same thing, right? It all starts from a Pinterest mood board or save things on Instagram, and you kind of say like, how do you do that? You know, what materials are used, what lighting is used, what furniture is used. And yeah, I've always been drawn to that too.
I want to ask a question that I struggle with sometimes because I want to know if you ever have like moments of when you're sitting in the middle of hush hush or later, and is there ever times where you're like, oh man, imagine it was this though, or something, and like commitment to the concept, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see, after 3 years, you get so much more context around what later could be that it, like I'm sure more ideas flooded in that you had to say no to because you can't just rapidly change an experience that people are used to. You're building a brand. You got to like also kind of stay a little structured. You know, you got to be tame if you really want it to be sustainable. So, like, do those like moments ever come across when you're sitting in in all these places?
Yeah, it happens every day, even in my own home. You know, like I
That's a little bit more. You can change that a little bit more though. You're more free to change that one for sure.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, like when we did later, I remember like the furniture that we picked was terrible, right? And it's like we didn't go to school for design and, you know, hospitality layouts, and we didn't, you know, watch YouTube videos or podcasts of like how to do certain things, and it just didn't flow. It was like terrible, you know, whatever the, you know, term is for that just didn't make sense. So we had to adjust later a lot. And it was funny because when later opened, it was popular because it was new, and then it went through this like weird transition where like the honeymoon phase died, and we had to figure it out. And I just knew that something wasn't right with the room, so we had to redo the furniture, redo the layouts and the patios, and it's crazy how that changed the energy in that room completely. And then it became what it is. And you know, we had this other bar called Born and Raised on the east side that we had for a minute, and that was also like, you know, our thought process on that was completely wrong looking back at it now. Looking at the design build, what we went after, it was just, you know, so many mistakes that now I look
Is it
back
like
at
too
it.
east sidey?
No, I wouldn't say that's the proper term, but just the design build of it, the size, the layout, it was just all wrong.
Okay.
You know, even the location, we didn't, looking back at it now, just like, of course, you know. And yeah, it's kind of hard to go back in there once it's built and be like, I got to move this around, right?
Yeah.
It's, you don't have that flexibility or luxury most times. But even with Hush Hush, who's, you know, thank God, it's been, you know, doing great. I have notes of if I had to do it differently, what would I do, right? Putting the bars in a certain way, seating in a different way, the depth of the booths, how far they recline, like all these little things you
Man.
take note of that would make the experience better, right? And yeah, like going back to my house, like I've always lived by myself. And I have needs for me, and but now my girl lives with me now, and we cook, and the closets, and now I think about like, wow, this doesn't make sense at all. The closet should be like this, the kitchen should be laid out like that. It's an open floor plan, it's small, but just little things where even the windows and stuff, I'm like, if I did this again. So I actually have like a notes for like my next home, where I'm already making notes of like what I would want to fix, right? And I feel like with every project that we do, we're currently working on a next concept. We have these like kind of experiences. Now we have a little bit of like, knowledge, and we want to improve every single one. So not only are we trying to build a concept that we're not going to like pull from ourselves or cannibalize from ourselves, but we want to build a concept that we get all these things right with the spaces presented to us too, right? Because you have those challenges too. Like, what do you have to work with? And we just try to get better with every project, try to improve.
Most of the concept designs, like Hush Hush, for example, as you're going ahead and doing the sketches and everything, are you sketching it with that property in mind? Or do you mold the concept to the property, or you work sorry, yeah. I think I already, do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah. Like, it just depends. So,
Like
Hush
chicken or
Hush was
egg?
originally Blackbird, and we had taken over Blackbird right before the pandemic. I think we closed on it like November, December of 2019. And the idea was to do a small remodel on it. And Blackbird was a popular place. And, I was a big fan of it. We loved it. And when COVID hit, we were just like, what can we do that's different here? We had more time.
Oh, okay.
And so that's when we, really wanted to do a rooftop. And that was kind of like how we reverse engineered. And, there was obstacles with, the rooftop, and like we wanted to kind of put like a sound barrier between us and another building, just like for privacy and just to control the sound. So with that in play, that's kind of how we reverse engineered everything. Our newest concept that we're working on, we kind of asked ourselves like, what would be an addition to our portfolio? It's different. What does the city need? What do we think that culturally would make sense? Would work. And we had a building in play, so we had an idea whether this building was in play or not. And then we get presented with this building. We try to marry both, right? So you have this canvas. It's not necessarily a blank canvas because you have certain obstacles to work with, but then you have this concept that you think is what your brand needs and what the city would, accept. And so you just try to blend the two as best as possible.
When you're doing the concepts, you're considering, like you said, you were listing out some stuff like the way the seats recline and everything of that sort. That seems like, and we just talked about how you can only do so much, not only as a business but as yourself. Like mentally, you get tapped too. How many people are involved in that process where they're pointing out all these little details, or like is it almost 95% of like a one man show of like pointing out these things that need to be considered? Maybe you don't solve 95%, but you're the one who's like identifying it all.
No, so like,
Let's talk about the team a bit.
yeah, so there's always like an architect engineer involved. You need someone to get the plans through the city. There's always some sort of branding creative agency involved that kind of helps, conceptualize the concept and the brand. And then there's our internal team,
Yeah, okay.
So I guess it's like a, 3, 4, different groups.
Okay.
I think, this is a science and this is like an art that's the big players have access to it, right?
Yeah.
People have been
Yeah.
throwing parties since the pyramid days, and Egyptian days. So like there's people that are super fucking good at this, right? And there's people that charge a lot of money for high-end places, restaurants. I can tell you exactly how to lay out a kitchen. Being a young company, we didn't have, the budget to afford a super high-end restaurant, hospitality designer, architect that specialized in that. So we had to work with the local community, and some of the local guys have gotten better. But when we started, I don't think there was that many. And even now, I don't think there's like a ton.
And what projects are you talking about when you're saying you're starting out? Which are these?
Every one of them, Hush, Later,
Okay.
Lost,
Okay.
even Born and Raised when we did that. Every bar or restaurant that you see has to have some sort of architect engineer. But yeah, so going back to these concepts, Kiki and I have done it a lot ourselves. And we never really looked at hiring someone that can help us with that. If we ever had a project big enough or we got a little bit bigger as a company, I would love to. There's, a dozen companies that I follow online or just brands that work with like amazing restaurants and bars that it would be like a blessing to work with some of those design firms and architecture firms. But, El Paso's not quite there yet for us to be able to afford something like that. Maybe it is for some, but not for us. So yeah, it's been just like all internal kind of the experiences because even if you hire a really good architect or a really good designer, they're not in there every weekend, right? They're not tearing down, they're not setting up for a show, they're not living, how deep the back bar is, how much fridge space you need for a busy night, right? So it's like they don't understand when I need to put my liquor orders in. It's my job to tell them like, hey, Texas law, we can't order something on a Sunday, sometimes even Saturday. So if we have a big show on Sunday, I have to make sure that I order my product, the bottles, beer beforehand, and I need to make sure that I have enough storage to store it to keep it cold. And so when you start off, you don't know all that, right? So you're kind of like, oh fuck. But now it's like, okay, I kind of have a better idea. I know how much back storage I know. I know how many wells I need. I know how many bartenders I need to staff on a busy night. So we kind of have to lay out the bar and figure all that out now, which as you go, you get better at it. But yeah, there's still, the handicap accessibility, for example, you need an engineer for that and architect for that. And like, how do they get to the restroom and figuring out that, just the logistics of like, just to be in compliance with the city and with the state, working with, I don't want the room to look like that, but you kind of have to because of this ramp or this issue, So
Settling with compromises and stuff.
yeah, 1,000%.
If somebody put like a big old spotlight on you and asked you all these questions, would you be able to answer all those for a hush hush, for example? Or do some of these, or some of this knowledge literally in somebody else's head right now? Like the legalities of a lot of stuff, like the ADA stuff and all that.
I think I could figure it out. Like I have like enough to hold a conversation.
Okay.
But if you made me, give you a 3D blueprint, there's no way. But like I understand, like after a certain capacity, you need fire sprinklers, and to get a fire sprinkler system, you need this, and that. Like I understand the basics now, and that's all just been learned through experience, right? Like again, I didn't go to school for it. We didn't go to school for it. It's just been through asking questions, trying things, and
Yeah. You have some. You have a lot of connections in Vegas. Some maybe, but are they? Do you ever try to pull a lot of knowledge from that as well? I guess what I'm asking, aside from like a Pinterest or an Instagram, network wise, how strong of a connection does your network like inspire these projects and help you push the city forward?
Yeah, one of my best friends works in Vegas and he works for a huge company, and it's hard to compare because that's such a big entity that they have departments for every single thing you can think of. And I've gotten a lot of compliments from some of my friends from out of town. They're like, "Damn, you guys, for being a small shop in a small city, like you guys have a good team," and I think we do too. But yeah, I reach out to friends in other communities and that are going through the same thing, and every city and state has its different challenges, but 100% I bounce back ideas and challenges and obstacles through my network of people that I've over the years, and that's what's cool about this. Any business really, but like in the entertainment, we're all kind of going through the same things where we're kind of trying to figure it out. What did this work for you? Did it not work for you? How was it working for this brand? And they're obviously bigger markets, bigger cities, bigger budgets, so they have a lot more depth of knowledge when it comes to certain things. But at the end of the day, we're still all doing the same thing. So yeah, it's cool to bounce back ideas from them.
This is the benefits. These are the perks of dropping the hater shit.
Yeah.
You know what I
Even like locally, like for a long time, I had like group chat with other owners where we would like toss back ideas and stuff. But it's not as like open. Maybe my other friends in the other markets wouldn't be as open, and if I was in their market or they were in my market,
true,
right?
true.
So maybe that kind of territorial thing is like why they're so open book. But there's been a lot of like mentors here, like the owner of Wing Daddies, Ryan McNellis, and his partner Mario. When I was starting off and I had these like difficult questions and going through audits and like just like they were such an open book, and they're amazing owners. I don't know if you guys have been to Wing Daddies or they have other concepts now, but shout out to them. He's been he probably doesn't even know that he's a mentor, but he's been a mentor. And of course, just working in the industry for a while, there's been certain people that have helped out, but those guys tremendously have been. For anyone in the restaurant bar that's kind of trying to scale like them, I recommend reaching out to those guys because they're super helpful.
A lot of the time, you guys do have the opportunity to work with touring artists, and I think that lends to being able to predict a lot more success with the shows, with the future of all the venues, because freaking Leon Bridges, man, was doing a set at Hush Hush. That's fucking insane, dude.
Yeah, that was cool. And Hermanos, shout out to Hermanos. They're
Yeah,
doing a great
yeah,
job
yeah.
right now. Too.
Not to have like left them out of that shit. They should have totally been in that sentence. But um, does it get hard to not lose hindsight of like the local entertainment as well? In all honesty,
You know what? You know, people don't. We got a little bit of hate from Boiler Room for some of the comments were that we didn't really embrace the local community, and I hate to give attention and energy to it, but it kind of did bother me a little bit. And what I want people to understand when it comes to working with a brand like that, and a lot of these brands, there's a lot of moving parts. Some of those decisions for the bill wasn't even our something that we were handling per se. So even if we wanted to throw so and so on the lineup, like we didn't have final say. So to see some of those comments, it was just kind of like bummer. But yeah, there's so much that we have to do, to put on a show, and people see one show and they see one highlight and they see one recap, and they're quick to judge, but they don't understand like the process behind it, right? So like there's so many moving parts behind it, that I'm dealing with and we're dealing with on a daily basis, that I wish I personally and could be a little bit, more tuned in with the, music scene as a whole. But sometimes I'm not. I'm busy working with,
yeah.
Payroll and marketing and budgets and,
and the freaking building.
yeah, no, permitting. And there's like so much that we're doing. And we've also built we've been working with local guys since, our morning after brunch days, right? We used to book 8, 9, 10 locals on there. And I feel like we've always had, given people certain looks and worked with, local up and coming artists. And, we've also liked working with our crew. We have a team, and the DJs and local guys are our team too. I take care of those guys like they're on my payroll, and they technically are. And so we want to give them, the opportunity to open up for some of these big DJs. I know their style, they're growing, we're growing with them. We were talking about managing earlier, and I don't say that we manage them, but I feel like I am involved in their, career and their process and their, they come in by the office, they like play some of their sets, their song selection. So yeah, we like to take care of them a little bit more. But yeah, would I like to work with more local guys? For sure. We're absolutely, And that's something like going back to when we had extended play. I don't know if you remember that when we had that conversation.
Yeah.
Like we had a whole series where we put a lot of money behind this like thing, and it just didn't work out. Ended up being something that, we just couldn't figure out how to work. But yeah, I mean, we love to be involved with the local community.
Man, it's fair to say though that when that series came out, it was the amount of the pool of artists was not the way it is now too though. So like I guess man, one of the questions would be like, do you guys ever have like a pin board of stuff? And is there like a little sticky note on that pin board that says like maybe we should revisit a little series of it that is maybe now that you guys are a little bit more in tune with being like cost efficient and you guys have a bigger budgets to work with, to where it's not as big of an investment, it's a little bit more like of a smaller percentage?
Yeah, for sure. We talk about revisiting that extended play all the time, right? It's like short for EP, which kind of had like this play on El Paso, and for sure we talk about that all the time, right? And it's just right now we have a few projects that are kind of keeping us up, and we talked about doing something at Lost and Found now that it's like a venue, and that's been something that we're just starting to open up to local promoters, local artists, and we want to work with different, And another thing is like the genre thing, right? We've always stuck to DJs, right? And if you notice, like there's, every venue has like their style of DJs, the local guys. So, re- depending on where you go, it's, most venues have like the same weekly DJs is what I'm saying. So yeah, we talk about, maybe opening up Lost where it's not our same guys every week. Maybe we switch it up or we do, and so that's where we're like, as I've gotten older, I don't go out as much as I used to.
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
as in touch as I am with the local community. That's what I was saying. Like, my energy's shifted into like other parts of the business where like I wish I can like come back and revisit some of that stuff, right? Because that's the fun part.
Yeah, that was actually me. One of my questions was like, as your needs and lifestyle evolves, and you get a little pulled away from some of this hyperactive stuff, how do you stay tapped in for the business? Is it about like hiring the right people to kind of just do that for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have 2 guys right now that pretty much handle all the
And what do you call that as like a job title? Is it like just talent search or something like that?
director of vibes, I guess. I don't even know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Vibe
we have this.
coordinator.
Yeah, we have one guy, Chris Briones, who's like amazing. He's kind of like our head buyer right now, so he's kind of in charge. And I don't know if he would want me to highlight that, but he's kind
Oh,
of.
they're gonna blow his ass up now.
No, he's kind of like we trust his judgment a lot. We trust his taste, and he's kind of like the guy and that we go to. And Kiki is super involved with music, and he's more on like thinking of the headliners. I think, because it's we have shows booked for next November already, so it's like a year out process sometimes. So we have to kind of like map all those out. But yeah, no, we have a team. We have probably 2 guys in the office that probably kind of more tapped in to the scene.
Hey, when you guys have full control of the lineup, that's an art form in itself too.
Oh, it's-
Curating the lineup.
That's hard. Yeah, it's like
What goes through your head when you're curating? Can I ask? Because I'm not too familiar with like what the lineup ended up being, but like let's say one of the Fisher events that you guys had done in the past. Was there a lineup to it, or was it just him?
no, there was a lineup to it.
Or can we let me let you decide the lineup that was your magnum opus, if you will.
I mean, it just depends. I'm like a data guy, so I've always tried to be like, I have like my system of what I think how popular they are as far as when it comes to like turnout, right? Or concert
Okay.
tickets. And you see it at the Don Haskins all the time. And it's like a game we have in our office where we kind of guess how many tickets that artist will sell.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like Junior H was playing. He just played the Don last Saturday, and we kind of all talked, and I was like, he's gonna sell out, and people were like, no, I don't think so, and so like, and it can be like Alejandro Fernandez or whatever, right? So it's like, yeah, like we know who's gonna do good. And like honestly, Coldplay I didn't think would do 2 nights at the Sun Bowl, sold out.
It's 2 nights.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Out of touch.
but then this other guy at the office was like, yeah, no shit, dude, they're big, and they're not playing Phoenix or anywhere else, so everyone's
Oh,
gonna
wow.
come here.
Wow.
Yeah, but normally when we book an artist or at work, we get the headliner, and another thing that people understand, like sometimes the artist has influence on or kind
Say.
of like to say in what the lineup is, and it could be people from his management label,
Oh, okay.
people from his agency label, people that he's gonna have a collaboration with. So yeah, we have like this ideal lineup, but it just goes down to, are they available that day? What's the budget? Does the headliner approve of it? So there's like these lots of little obstacles to get that lineup done.
Can I ask a question that's in the form of like me seeking advice a bit? I want to know, like, as you guys go ahead and, is there ever any moments when like the artist has a request that like you're like, ah man, but we want to make it happen. So you guys decide to make the compromise, if you will. Does that ever happen?
What do you mean? Say it again. I don't
Like
think
the
I
artist
understood.
has a request, maybe like they have some selections from their lineup, like they have some say in the lineup, and you guys are a little bit iffy about it, but you really want to make this artist specifically work, so you'll make some compromises for that artist that you feel, like
Yeah,
J&K wouldn't do that, you know?
that happens all the time. Yeah.
Is it
So-
hard? Is it hard to go ahead and like accept that for the sake of like getting that artist?
It's like a simple example would be like, you have an artist, I sign you, and you're on fire right now, and everybody wants to book you. But me as a manager, I also sign him. So I leverage you to also book him, right? So that happens all the time. It's like a leveraging thing, like,
Like
hey,
you said, that's a transaction.
yeah. So it's like, yo, we'll work with you. Obviously, everyone wants the slam dunks. Everyone wants the Michael Jordans. Everyone wants the big star. But like, you have to build a relationship with my agency, with all my artists, right? Because I'm trying to give them all looks. Like, of course, everyone's gonna want, Coldplay, but like I also represent 13 other people on my roster that I want to build a relationship with you, right? So that works. That's a lot of how the business works sometimes, you know? So yeah, and even the venues sometimes, you know, if we're working with certain venues and different partners, they want to say and they want to, you know, to book certain people that you might not be, you know, the biggest fan of, or you might not think it fits the show best, but, you know.
When you say partners, is one of like the current ones the Almont? Like, is that considered like an example of a partner that isn't your guys' venue?
A partner would be like a co-promoter or like,
Oh, okay, okay,
yeah,
got you.
yeah.
Man. Outside of the businesses, just like the one that's gonna come out tomorrow, we dove deep into just like the concept of like keeping your money growing. Is it okay? Is it a fair question for me to ask? Like if you only just like rely on like what the business grows, or at this point are you able to kind of like invest nice? You know, like do you also invest your money or anything like that?
Yeah, so, you know,
Is that
right?
a fair question? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, right now we're still trying to grow our brand, right? So we're working on a new concept. You know, this will be our fourth concept. We're working on more shows. We have our co-working space that also
Yep.
like started kind of pivoting to in a way. There's only so many desks and office space that
Oh,
we
how
had.
so? Yeah. How does one pivot?
So one is the co-working space. We have office space. We have like communal desks, you know, and we have two employees there that kind of manage the space. And when we started investing into real estate a little bit, we started buying little apartments, you know, remodeling them, kind of taking the same approach when we take a bar. And, you know, it all happened, not necessarily by accident, but we found a building next to, you know, one of our bars that went up for sale and we kind of liked it. And, you know, and it ended up being all over three of our staff ended up living in that little building. It was like a triplex. And then another one opened up. And so,
Black one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, managing an apartment is, you know, well, even now, I mean, just managing an apartment's like, you got to do a lot of stuff to it, right? Like things break, things, you know, you got to show a lease, you got to give the keys, the pest control, dumpster. Like there's like, you know, it's a business, so you have to run. There's a lot of moving parts with that too. So with the co-working space, it made sense for us to have that management team also manage the apartments. So it kind of became like this co-working space slash management rental management company. So now as we grow the apartments, one co-working space kind of has, and so we even like now the slogan for one is live, work, play. So it's like live, we'll have apartments, work at the co-working space, and play would be like our bars, right? So yeah, one was kind of cool. You know, one stands for January 1. You know, I was listening to like a Biggie song where he's just like, it's kind of corny, but when he's just like, treat everything like it's your first day hired when you was an intern. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, January 1, everyone's like super motivated. Everyone's back to get on the grind.
Are you a New Year's guy too?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like I need to gamify my life to
Hell yeah. Yeah, I know what you're
like
talking
stay
about.
on top of shit. So I need to have
Achievements.
like certain goals. I need to like sign up for that marathon. I need to like have little challenges to keep me on track. And so one for me was like that mindset of like, you know, have that New Year's resolution.
Very fitting for the business that it is.
Yeah. I like that name a lot. I always try to brag about it because no one really knows, but people don't care, I guess.
You got some good names. Are you guys? Is the theme very intentional when you guys have the double name?
You know what? No. And we told ourselves that we're never gonna have a double name again because it was like one hush hush later and we're like, what are we doing? Going back to like
So that wasn't intentional at all. It just happened like that.
so one and later were not.
Yeah.
It was just like, damn, I like the name. It's cool. Like when we saw like the logo options for it, we're like, oh, this works. The other one before it was one, we were entertaining Fruition as a name, but everyone was like, no, it sucks. It's complicated, whatever. And later was kind of like a joke. It was going to be called the White Elephant before, which is also terrible. Now looking back.
Oh no, that later logo now is solid, dude.
Yeah.
Don't ever change that name.
You see how the later
Yes,
logo
sir.
works?
Yes, sir. That
Yeah.
shit is beautiful.
People don't see that either, but yeah, that was thought out. But yeah, so and then Hush Hush, we liked the name and we thought it was funny, and it was like, oh, it's all. And then we were kind of scared. I'm like, damn, Hush Hush, later, one, like it might be too repetitive, like cannibalize, whatever. But we liked the name. And people don't call it later, they call it later. Or people
Yeah.
call it hush.
Yeah.
So we knew that the one name would, you know. But yeah, for the next concept and probably for all others, we probably won't do the double
Don't
name.
count on it, folks. Don't count on it. Man, dude, the branding, that is like one of the things that fascinates me the most, just because this whole time you haven't been calling them businesses, you're calling them concepts and experiences. Is that because that's just like an internal thing, or is it because you're very intentional and you understand like how strong branding is? Like, I feel like the one thing that you may have gained through these 14 years at the very top of all of this mountain of stuff that you've gained, oh man, that branding, dude, that shit is on point. So can you tell me a little bit about like where your mind works when you're thinking about those things?
Yeah, so, you know, when we decided to get into this business, you know, everyone tells you like bars, you know, don't last forever and it's like a finicky business and there's no longevity in it. And we wanted to do shit that was going to like be timeless, you know,
Yep.
or stand the, you know, the test of time. And that was intentional from the beginning, right? So it's like creating brands and experiences and something that's not going to be trendy, that's going to go out of style or just, you know, become irrelevant was kind of the goal. And you can go get a beer or a Tito soda wherever, right? Like the product's not changing, right? It's like a restaurant's different because that food that you cook, people come back for that plate, their favorite meal. But when it comes to a bar, a Jack and Coke's a Jack and Coke, you know, a Coors Light's a Coors Light. So you do have to create this brand and this experience for people to come to your place and keep coming back to it, right? And so, you know, I've always said we're in the brand creating business, not the bar business. So,
Okay.
brand first, and there's a lot of power in brand. It's very important, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. So then I've heard this one statement before, and excuse me, I've heard this one statement before, and I don't know if you want to agree with it. This is what I like. I don't really watch TV no more. If I'm watching TV, it's live sports or something like that. But really, what I'm doing a lot is watching like this one channel on YouTube. It's called The Future, and all they do is talk about branding. Specifically, they help out creative entrepreneurs, designers mainly. Um, but one of the interviews that they had, this one big guy who's big in branding, legend, and he says, "You're not in control of your brand. You can only really just influence it." Are you conscious of that? Would you agree with that? Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to create something for later, but everyone just sees it as this, or hush hush comes out, it's the third business of yours that has two names, and you guys have this dope concept, but all everyone sees it as is, dude, they keep double naming everything. So do you agree with, just as an example, and it doesn't mean it's true or not, but like, do you agree with the statement that you're not in control of your brand? You can influence it all you want, but you really do have to be conscious of that audience feedback.
Yeah, I think that like there's like two perspectives, right? So it's like you you know, people have this like mindset of like you have to show the people what they want or what, you know, what they want, right? And there's a lot of people where like you have to listen to the feedback and see, you know, what the people want. And when you create a brand, I agree with like you're not in total control of it, you know? You're not in total control of any decision you make as an entrepreneur, honestly. You can have done all the research, you know, looked at it every single which way, and you come out with your product and it's just taken in a different way. Like you can't really control how it gets, you know, absorbed. And I guess there is some truth to that. You know, you create the brand, you put it out there, and after that the product's out and you just have to yeah, influence, you know, the direction that it goes in. But yeah, you know, some brands take off for different reasons and some brands get accepted in different ways. And no matter how much you try to control, and I'm sure artists and musicians see that out too, right? They put out songs or albums or, you know, things and it might not hit the certain way they wanted or hit the demo it wanted. And it just figured out a different way to find its lane.
When would you guys ever say you've had an unsuccessful event?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What are you pulling from that? What are you like? You know what I'm saying?
There's always something to learn, you know. An OG promoter once told me there's no such thing as a bad show, just a bad buy. And he was referencing to, you know, the transaction of putting a show together. And you have to think of why a show was unsuccessful, right? Was it the artist or the, you know, concept was irrelevant, bad timing, In the promotion music business, it's too bad. It's a bad thing to be too early on an artist, and it's a bad thing to be too late, right? So you want to catch him or her at the right time, right? If they're too early, no one knows about them, no one really cares, no one's tapped in. If it's too late, it's just kind of like, yeah, been there, done that. So I guess just figuring out like that perfect timing uh, makes like the difficulty of putting on a successful show. And there's a lot of other variables that go back. So every time we have an unsuccessful show, we go back and did we overpay? Did we not market it in the certain ways? Were our costs too high? Was production off? Was it a bad holiday? Was it a bad time of the year? Are kids going back to school?
It goes down to stuff like that.
Oh, 1,000%. There could be a big, you know,
So would you not throw a show like in August, or would you not focus on a big show in August because that's when like school's really starting, like the end of
what's a
August?
big show that we've
Oh,
tried?
Labor Day, like that's a big.
4th of July always kicks our ass. We've never been able to make
That's
4th of
supposed to be a
July work.
hit. Dang.
That's what you think, but I think you have competition with like Red Sands or people going out of town, or maybe it's too hot. But we, for whatever reason, never been able to make that date work. But yeah, there's certain things. I mean, I remember one time we had a show booked, and Floyd Mayweather announced a fight that night.
Oh, he just announced the fight. He didn't even fight.
No, he did.
Oh, okay.
It was basically like we booked the show, and then I don't know, 4 months out, and then 3 months out, Floyd Mayweather's fighting, I don't know, Canelo on that Saturday night.
Oh man.
And so it's like people aren't going to go to the show. They're going to go watch the fight somewhere, It was a big fight, pay-per-view. The fight ends at 11:12, like your show goes on at 11:30, 12, And it's like you can't control that, right? And so if you were banking on having 800 people, those 800 people that probably go out and socialize or have drinks or buy a concert ticket are also probably going out and watching a UFC fight, even if it's 30, 40%. But if you're operating at a margin of 20, 30% profit, there it goes. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that you can't control, and there's certain things that you learn with time. And yeah, you negotiate better deals sometimes, and there's a lot to it, and it's complicated. And I wish going back when I decided to do this, I probably should have like done an internship for like a big Live Nation or C3. That opportunity never presented it. I never really explored it, but like I would love to see how. And I say this now about bars and restaurants, like the big guys. They're like, damn, I would like to work with them for a month or 2 months, to see how they think, what their meetings are like, what are they discussing, what are they strategizing, what data do they have that we can use. And a lot of it's honestly like luck, and whichever way you interpret luck, whether it's just like good preparation, hard work, whatever, and just putting yourself out there. But yeah, I feel like we've gotten lucky a lot. I remember when we started, a lot of promoters, not a lot of promoters, but like a promoter, was just like, these guys are idiots. They're not going to make it. They're dumb. They're this or that. And I remember thinking about that and being like, damn, he might be right, because it was, definitely complicated to figure out. And we just kept grinding, kept fucking trying shit, being as smart as we can, the small, uh, you know, lessons that we learned along the way. We try to make them small, if they were big losses or whatever.
You also try to make them lessons instead of just
Yeah.
wastes.
Yeah, and I always try to downplay them too. Like, even though they like hurt, I always be like, all right, that was a little lesson. Get back on the horse. Then I never let it like fully knock me down. So we're still here. So we're doing something right. Thank God. Knock on wood.
Got you. Are there these habits, these outlooks on the professional side? Do they bleed into the personal side as well? Like, do you also try to downplay maybe any challenges that are in the personal life?
Yeah, for sure. When you're like a business owner, I think that your personal life and your career get blended in a lot.
Okay. Do you prefer it like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the only way I've known, really. So,
Fair.
but yeah, it's affected my relationships for sure, both good and bad. And you're just always kind of semi thinking about something. There's a lot of personal challenges that one goes through that affect their work, right? No matter what profession you're in. It's a little different sometimes when people are relying on you. I feel like you don't have the time to, not the time, but not even the luxury. I don't know what the right word is, but you don't have, there's people that are relying on you, right? So you have that different kind of push to be like, all right, dude, I can't let this fully take me out, right? Whatever you're dealing with. And we all deal through a lot of shit. So, yeah, you try to just have that like stoicism mentality of like, you'll get through this, not everything bad lasts forever, not everything good lasts forever.
On the way you said that, your lady comes in and you get a little bit of a realization on the kitchen or the couches. Other personal habits that I'd like to explore is, being so intrigued, being so passionate about design with interior design, architecture. You're trying to find the best situation, like room wise. Does that also translate into you also trying to find like the best routines and best habits that help you get through each day?
Yeah, like I said, I like to gamify my
Yeah,
life
yeah,
in a
yeah.
way. So I have certain routines and certain things that I like to stick to that keep me structured. I'm not
You're a morning person, huh?
oh big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Before the
was
sun
really
up, before the sun comes up.
yeah that was tough for me. When I was starting off in the bar business because naturally I would just wake up early, right? So even if I stayed out till 2 3, my body was up. So I kind of had to like force myself to learn how to take care of myself, and get the proper sleep and work out. And, we live in a tough industry, or we work in a tough industry. So, you know, prioritizing, I've always been like active and, worked out a little bit, but prioritizing health and all that.
Marathons.
Yeah. But it's work, so you have
Yeah.
to like, now it's like I have to put it on the calendar. I have like a gym partner who he's like we keep each other accountable.
Yeah, for sure.
And that helps a lot. Some days that I don't want to go in, he's just like, yo, what are we hitting today? And I'm like, fuck, I can't leave this guy down, he's waiting for me. I have a personal trainer too where it's like, damn, I already signed up, I can't. So little things like that help me stay structured. My lady's awesome. She's like a big works in PR and marketing for a big brand, and she's super structured, she's organized. She's on her notebook, she's on her grind. So she like motivates me too, because sometimes I'm there like on the couch 2 p.m. and she's still working, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta do something, I gotta go back to the office or something. So it's good to have a partner like that. Also keeps me
Like the different life partners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a moment when like you guys were realizing that this could be a business that you were also like at that same time you're realizing, oh, I gotta like take care of myself a little bit better too. Like, is that happening at the same time? Because you say you're kind of always active. Is there a realization that you should shift personally, or that never needed to happen per se?
Yeah, for sure. And I was never like, not that I never took care of myself, but like as you get older, you kind of start tuning into your body a little bit more, I feel like.
Yeah. You notice the creaks.
Yeah, maybe it's just getting old, but as a young kid, you're untouchable. Nothing hurts, nothing, but you're also learning. You don't even know what to pay attention to, right? So I feel like just to stay on top of it mentally and stuff, that's always helped me. During the pandemic, I kind of, when I stopped working out for a bit because everything was closed, I kind of got like in the worst mental shape that I've ever been, where I kind of sympathize with people that are like depressed or like, I've always had anxiety and struggle with that a bit. But during the pandemic was the time where I was like, oh shit, I was like, every night I was cooking. So I was like drinking wine. The gyms were closed. So I didn't really understand how important that like community was, just like being around people. So I feel like that kind of got me a little messed up. So like after that, I made a point to myself, like, yo, you're gonna always work out. You're always gonna, be, make time for your family, have that kind of like community aspect.
Yeah, that shifted a lot of people's routines.
Oh,
Their lifestyles
yeah,
flipped.
it's made me more grateful. It slowed me down a little bit. Yeah,
More living in the moment. Did you feel like you had like a very fast paced like chapter of life where you maybe like missed out on some moments you didn't appreciate them as much? Is that what you mean by that?
yeah, I think so. I think you're just
It gets fast at some point, huh?
it's not even that fast. It's not like I had so much on my plate that I was like crazy. It's just your mindset. Your attention is focused on something else, right? The things
Okay.
that like the little moments that you take for granted, you look back and you're just kind of like, damn, you know what I mean? So now I try to be a little bit more, conscious of that,
Do you think attitude is like one of the number one keys for success across like your professional and personal life?
Yeah, yeah. Even with like hiring and building a team is like having people with the right attitude is so important. It's it's like shapes the energy in the room, and that sounds kind of like corny to say, or
No, not at all.
but yeah, you have to have that mindset. And like I said, the older I've gone even like more on the manifestation thing, right? So I grew up going to private school, being like born in a Christian family. So you would always pray and like have this like kind of thought process of like, whatever you want to call it, positive thinking. But the older, it's like the attitude, the way you just, it's so easy for you to like think of every problem as like, this sucks. I had a bad day. I don't feel good. This person didn't do this or whatever, right? So, but you can change the way you kind of digest this stuff. And that's helped me for sure. And I was not good at it. If you ask my partners, they probably think that I'm negative Nancy a lot of times, right? Because life's fucking not easy, right? And yeah, you take these things that happen and you can really easily have a shit attitude about it. And that affects the way you do everything else. But it's hard to have like a positive outlook or positive attitude all the time, right? You don't want to be that person that's always happy either, right? It's kind of annoying. But you
It's not realistic.
No, but you do want to like treat shit with like, yo, this is gonna work out. Like even if it doesn't, it's gonna work out. And if it doesn't, we're gonna learn. Yeah. So let's do it,
I could be negative Nancy too, Johnny.
I think we all can. I think that's like in our nature to be like negative first, right? Like you can have a product come out, like we were just talking about Boiler Room, and 5,000 people say it was awesome, and you have 30 that talk shit.
And those 30 are
And those 30 stand out.
Yeah.
When you had 5,000 people tell you how awesome it was, right? So I think that's just the way our brains are wired, It's you could say something and you think twice, like, oh, fuck, did I sound stupid? What are they going to say about it? Are they roasting me on a group chat? And you let these little kind of negative thoughts kind of overweigh the positive. So it takes practice to adjust that. And I'm not saying I do it all the time too, but sometimes you just remind yourself,
So it's almost easier to be negative than to be positive. It takes more energy to be positive.
Takes more muscles to frown than smile.
Yeah. Is that a fact?
I think so.
Yeah.
Or it takes more muscles. Yeah, it does. So it's like smile more. It takes less muscles.
So yeah, it's a lot easier to be Debbie Downer. It's a lot easier to not start on the project that you've been wanting to do. It's a lot easier to not get up for the gym. It's a lot easier to not be a better person. It's a lot easier to not make that phone call you want to make or you need to make. It's a lot easier to do a lot of the shit that you need to do, right? And I think that's why, like I said, it's like going back to our nature, like the shit worth having is harder to do, right? If shit was easy, then we'd all be fucking six packs and rich, right? So no, you got to put in that work and you got to try to do it with a positive attitude, I guess.
It's good to hear. That part's really good to hear. There's a couple parts in there that were just like, oh man, dude, that's me right there. I need to fix that. Sometimes, man, there's just times where I just feel like, but I think when I'm like, I guess when I'm doing that stuff, I feel like I'm projecting a lot. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, if I'm ever hating on anybody that's maybe getting a lot further along or is further along, I think it's me saying I could be better.
A lot of the hate and the negative that comes out, like when I was talking about the crabs in the bucket, it comes out not because like, yo, I fucking hate J&K or I hate Evan Romo. It's because like I'm not happy where I'm at in my life, or I should have the things that they have, or I'm just as good, or why didn't I get that opportunity? And it comes from a place of like inner hate that projects out, right? And that's like a defense mechanism, I feel like. So a lot of people that are haters are because like, oh, like I could do that shit too, or that's not that dope.
They're
like,
big projectors also.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that negative energy comes from within too. And I've been guilty of it too, where I see shit happening for certain things and I'm like, damn, I think that could be us, that could be me, that can be whatever. What did they do that I don't, what? And it can be easy to put yourself in that mindset. But I feel like a lot of the people that, have these like you were saying, like when I have that hate, it's basically you're just because like that you want to be that or you want to do that or you're capable of doing those
There you
things.
go. I was about to say not just want to, but like you're capable.
Yeah.
Of it. But you've been slacking. You've been oversleeping or you've been eating too late or whatever the case is.
Whatever the case is. And sometimes you are putting in the work and you still don't get like, people say that, you can work hard as fuck and you still, there's only one champion, you know what I mean? Like in a game,
There's only one ring.
There's only one ring, yeah.
Let's go.
But that doesn't mean that you can't keep trying and keep going or find your lane, Like some of the best opportunities that I've had in my personal life, like later was supposed to be somewhere else. And the deal fell through because the landlord decided to pull the plug last minute. And so like going back to the beginning, I had hired an agent, a real estate agent, to help me with this process. It was our first sale, and we were going to put a lot of work into later because it was like nothing, right? And we were going to make a lot of that investment ourselves because the landlord's like, yeah, you can rent it and you can put up the money. But my agent was like, yo, like you should have the option to purchase the building for a certain amount, especially if you're going to put that much money in it. Like, how are you going to like add so much value to this guy's building and pay him rent? But I wasn't thinking that. I just wanted to open the bar or whatever, right? So long story short, the first place that we were going to do later, the landlord agreed to everything, but was having second thoughts about and we weren't even going to buy it right then and there. It was just the option to buy it at a later time if we crushed it for whatever reason. So he ended up pulling the offer right when we had done like all the due diligence, all the permitting, all this stuff, and just to see if we can do it. And I remember being so pissed and bummed, and I almost wanted to fire my agent because I was like, oh, you ruined the deal. And I wanted to go back to the landlord and be like, we don't even want to buy the building. Like, I don't care renting it. So, and then he had a change of heart, whatever. So I remember for like the next 2, 3, 4 months or whatever it was for us to find that new location, I was so salty and pissed about this deal not going through. And then the later opportunity opened up where it is now. Way better location. I got the opportunity to buy it. The ballpark got announced. Like all these things
Oh,
happened.
that's a heater, huh?
And it was like a better deal, better rent, and then later it did well. And I remember calling the guy and be like, "Hey man, like I think we're gonna buy this building. We're doing good." And so he's like, "Oh shit, well we have that in the contract." And now looking back, I'm like, "Damn, if that other deal would have fell through, that bar wouldn't have been as popping probably. I would have been stuck in a 5-year lease with all this money out. Like I would have never had the chance to buy it. The ballpark would have still happened. Someone else probably would have done later." So like going back to like putting in the reps and you still lose or come out with an outcome that you're not happy, but like 4 months later, I'm like, damn, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, you know?
Attitude and patience. That's probably one of the biggest key things of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose a lot before you win.
And patience is
And you're
tough
also
when
gonna like have losses that seem like losses but are truly secret wins such as that.
yeah.
But you wouldn't know that if you're just getting pissed and giving up or whatever. Oh man, dude. I'm
But
glad
there's
we're
no
still here.
better feeling than even if you take an L or an L at that point, like there's no better feeling than knowing you still put in that work, right? And so you're not stupid. Like we're not stupid with ourselves. Like we know when we put in the work and not put in the work, right? Like it's like, why am I not losing the weight or why am I? It's like, well, you kind of know why, right? But like if you honestly put in the work and you're trying hard and the shit doesn't work out, like there's gotta be you gotta learn how to like still be proud of putting in the work and getting those reps in, right? Because it's gonna work out eventually if you keep doing it. That's I guess my thought process on it. And even if it doesn't work out, if you put in the work and you should have some sort of sense of pride for that.
Do you think attitude stems from being able to like forgive yourself?
Yeah.
Like that's probably like what helps to be able to like say that like no, I'm putting like I know my self-worth. Like this loss isn't going to diminish that. But that comes from being able to like truly be like no, like it's kind of like forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
And like from there that's what switches the attitude which then is a domino effect across like all aspects.
Yeah. And there's like we all have different like layers of shit that builds up over time, right? And you have to not only learn to forgive yourself, but like be real with yourself, I guess. Be honest with yourself, right? And a lot of people don't want to have that honest conversation. They're like living in this like fake bubble of ideas or reasons why certain things go a certain way. I had this guy tell me once was like everything happens for a reason, but sometimes that reason is that you're dumb and you make bad decisions. And I remember thinking about it and laughing, but I was just like, it's true. Like some of the things that happened to us is because we put ourselves in a position that wasn't too smart, right? And for whatever reason that happened, you kind of have to like have some accountability and like figure it out and forgive yourself, move on, fuck it. That chapter closed. What's next, right? And some people have some tough shit that they got to get over. Shit that's not even their fault sometimes, right? And that's like hard to have that positive outlook and that positive attitude when sometimes life sucks, dude. Shit gets thrown at you that's like fucking tough.
Just dealt a bad hand.
100%.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure harder to have a positive outlook through versus like you have every thing you need to do what you need to do, but you're not doing it. That's, I don't know. That's, you could argue that everyone's different, everyone's life different, but
But like if you have that conversation with someone that has everything, they're gonna have some sort of reason why they're not doing what they're doing, right? Some sort of blame. And then when you have someone that was dealt a bad hand, they're also going to be like, well, it's very easy for me to victimize this, whatever. And so, like, both sides have this argument of why they're struggling, right? And, you know, like Joe Rogan once said on that podcast, where it's like, the worst shit that's happened to you is the worst shit that, you know, you've experienced or whatever, right? So, like, a kid, a baby that, you know, the worst shit that happened to him was, you know, he didn't get his favorite snacks at Whole Foods, and the other kid can be someone that doesn't have a bed to sleep in, right? But to that kid, that's the worst experience that's happened to them, whatever, right? So in their mind, it's just like terrible day or terrible life or whatever. And it's like true, like some people just get dealt a really bad hand, and some people have everything at their fingertips, and you're like, dude, why are you still struggling? Or what? Like, why aren't you making shit happen? You have these opportunities, these resources, this network. So I think it's like kind of hard to like put yourself in other people's shoes, right? And just have like a positive outlook no matter what hand you were dealt and try to make the best out of it.
It's like perspective is also very important.
Yeah, for sure.
one of the words that we've said a lot in the episodes, empathy.
Empathy.
Being able to empathize. But damn, man. So I do want to ask a little bit more, just one more, about just a little bit more like about like where I guess El Paso can go, because I might have framed the question wrong when I had said like what does El Paso necessarily need? Like my goal with El Paso as a concert goer is I want to see more of the artists I like to see come through to El Paso. So I want to try to like solve those issues. So I do want to know if I just want to know your opinion on this idea that I have, this like outlook as to what might be the solution. And it's just more of yeah, you know, well, we should take advantage of the fact that El Paso's here. But at the end of the day, I think one of the best solutions is to create more like press related opportunities for the artists as well, because there's already a lot of venues for them to like lock in on shows, but they can go ahead and combine that with interviews or live sessions that aren't necessarily tickets sold. So it's more of a press thing than it is a performance. But do you guys ever consider the fact that like a lot of your guys' content, everything you guys produce are mainly shows and they're a moment versus you can relive it as long as you want afterwards? Because I think Boiler Room goes live film, so I guess you can go back and watch it if you wanted to, right? But do you guys do that with other shows?
No,
And do you ever think about like cementing it into the digital world as well?
Yeah, so most artists and agencies have like copyright and like PR firms signed to their agents, so it's kind of hard to get that clearance. You know, you see it with the bigger brands, the Coachellas, the Boiler Rooms, you know, some of the larger venues that like they're known for their streaming. But here in El Paso, creatively, there's still so much opportunity, man. I feel like
You don't think you even have to scratch that yet?
us ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that can be like for sure, you know, an added content. You know, you're just creating content, something we can focus on. But I feel like what you're talking about, I feel like there's plenty of opportunity for the local community and like local creators and like
Yeah.
to do like a ton of cool shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's like these like things that are popping up where people are doing like these DJ parties at coffee shops, right? So it's like 9 a.m. on the weekends. People are just listening to music, you know, having coffee. So there's a lot of different like you said, the tiny room desks and these living room sessions, and you know, content is like changing it. The way we're digesting everything in media is like it's getting cool, it's getting fun, it's getting funky. You know, people are doing shit in different places, and I feel like El Paso's perfect for that, right? Like we have so many dope backdrops, we have dope parks around here, we have a whole another country next to us. Like,
Have you ever seen those circle sessions?
of course, dude,
Yeah.
they're awesome.
Yeah. I think FKJ has one where he's just in the middle of water, dude. I think in Bolivia or something.
Yeah, no, they're crazy. I mean, that would be fun if J and K want to do. I wouldn't mind doing that, where I'm traveling to sick places, putting on these concerts for like YouTube, you know.
Yeah. I guess the question was just being like, are you guys even trying to embrace that digital age that we're in at this point? Like, do you ever try to merge where you're at currently?
Yeah, I think like we have to, right? So like going back to like that extended play concept that we had, where we were trying to get on YouTube like really early. I feel like, I mean, obviously YouTube's been a monster for years, so
Yeah.
like we were like trying this like YouTube, and now I feel like everyone's on YouTube, right? Everyone, like, I watch YouTube more than I watch everything else, and that wasn't the case back then. And we talk about ideas all the time, interesting. When we do the recaps of the shows and we have like AB Gonzalez, like in his team, like flying drones, FPV, and the flares, and like that's all cool, right? But there's so much of that content out already of like amazing venues, concerts, production companies, etc. So we've also talked about doing like a behind the scenes, right? Like people want to see what happens in the office, what happens to like booking a show, putting it all together, what the guys are doing, like getting the writer, and this guy wants certain champagne and certain chocolate strawberries and certain like things where
I want to see that. Yeah.
yeah, I think that we wanted to do, and that's kind of becoming like a brand thing, right? We want
Yeah.
people to kind of get familiar with our brand and who we are and what we do and the effort that it takes to put these shows together. So that's kind of like a direction that we're thinking about entertaining as far as like that media world, and having that, like when you put that video out, it's going to be out, right? But giving people a behind the scenes of like building the brand and what it takes, right? So this next coming year is probably going to be our busiest year when it comes to shows. And we want to do a good job of capturing
Documenting.
not just the boiler room recap, and Armin Van Helden said it's going to be, no, it's actually Sango said that's going to be what's going to be available to stream live. But what did it take to put all that together, right? Like the guys were up at 6 in the morning setting up, putting the truss up. We had an issue with like the generator and like all that stuff that happens behind the scenes. I think that's kind of something that as a community we can build and do that. And then maybe bring back like the local artists like we used to do, right? The guys that are like making music and making waves, and giving them kind of like, a behind the scenes look too would be cool. And I feel like the interest is growing there, right? And back then it was kind of like you said, we were like team early when it came to it, I think. But I think now it's getting better, right? And we're in a position where we have like a bigger team than we did back then, and a lot of in-house production now, that we can make those kind of, create that kind of content.
Yeah. We're talking about, we've talked about like seeing an artist too early or too late sometimes. And yeah, like timing's really important.
Yeah.
When it comes to like that want though, sometimes you do want to be perfectly timed, but there's got to be like a little bit of an itch you want to scratch with being the one to break that artist. When your platform gets as large as J&K, do you guys ever have more serious conversations where you're more laxed about the timing? You're like, nah, dude, this artist is sick and no one knows about him yet. We'll make sure that people know. Now that you guys have more brand power?
It depends. I still don't consider J&K a big like promoter or a big like outlet like that. We're also in a small city, there's like A markets, B markets, or top tier markets is what they call them: New York, LA, Miami.
What do you consider El Paso?
It's probably like a C market.
Does it go to D or is it just C's?
I honestly don't even know, but it's definitely like the big ones, Miami, New York, and then it's like the smaller ones that are still kind of big, like San Antonio's, Austin is kind of up there now, but like Phoenix, Tucson's up there now too. But you know what I mean? There's like some cities that are still, and then El Paso would probably be like the third tier. So sometimes we don't get the artist on their first run, second run. There's some artists that just like, for the value and that they're worth, it doesn't make sense for them to come to, and that's why you don't see a lot of like the big shows coming to El Paso, right? They're like on 18 semis, and they have like this crazy production where it's like they might take a hit to come to El Paso, right? It just doesn't financially make sense for the market. And some artists are big enough that they can play wherever, but that's kind of where we don't see like maybe some of the artists you like or that I like that are that in between, that they can't really tour here yet. But as El Paso grows, and like we were talking about, like cannibalize, like if there was a big show at the Dawn every weekend, like the market wouldn't be able to support that, I don't think,
Yeah.
And it's getting better, but so yeah, I think being team early is awesome, especially being the first one to introduce them to the market. But sometimes, most of the time, these artists are already playing in bigger cities before they come to El Paso. So it's very hard to break an artist. You can break them in the market for your community.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes some artists do really, really, really well early. Some you have to get them at the right time because people, it might not transition into a successful event.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can get someone that was like hot 2, 3, 4 years ago, and now they're, people aren't listening like they were when the hit was big 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. And then All right, all right. Well, my solution, my proposed one was to have more press op. Like if you slowly become an LA in the sense of like you go to a show, but then you also have all these interviews to run, and now you have all this content. You get what I'm saying? Like I feel like we don't have enough of that as well, and that doesn't give an artist a complete experience when they come to tour here. And that, I mean, that's me coming in with like 2 solid years of genuine. All right, that's an educated guess of a suggestion, but if I were to ask you, oh well, you already explained. Never mind. Sorry. I'm just saying like that's where I'm coming from. Like I just feel like there needs to be a way to turn El Paso into where it's like, it's not a hit to come here. You know, so how can you do that without I guess because we're not in control of the city just growing in population and everything like that. But we could also take more advantage of the fact that we are kind of isolated. So if they are gonna come here, the next show probably isn't to like Albuquerque usually or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can take advantage of the cruises people to come here more, Mexico to come here more.
Yeah, yeah. But I think,
These are probably thoughts that you've already like gone through.
No, but I understand your question a little bit better now. So it's like, yeah, that's why we're big fans of these downtown block parties, and we're looking for new venues to activate the experience to make it cool and highlight the city, right?
To where it's worth traveling
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Because it's like, you know, yeah, it's not exciting to go play a warehouse somewhere that's like a venue that's not, in El Paso or whatever. And not hating on venues because they're super needed, obviously.
Yeah.
They're easy or whatever. But like if you want to create something like, oh shit, like that's dope. I saw that. It's cool, right? That's why festivals are a big deal, right? When Neon Desert was a big deal, it was just like, damn, like artists want to play that. They want to be a part of that. It's the weekend of El Paso. That's where the big artists come. So yeah, we need to create more experiences, more brands, more parties, more things like that, right? And if that's a media play, like it's aligning yourself with someone because like Post Malone's not gonna come and do a. I mean, I could be wrong, obviously. Hopefully, Post sees this and it's like, yeah, I'll come to El Paso. But like, Post won't go do a living room session in El Paso unless it's like NPR Tiny Desk or like a Howard Stern, Joe Rogan interview. You know what I mean? Like they also have PR firms. They're like, yeah, like. Yeah. But if we had someone like that, like a super poppin', like you guys blew up, start getting views, and it becomes a thing, and then Jarritos wants to sponsor you guys, or Electrolit, or someone where like it makes sense financially, where you guys can pay some artists to come in and do an interview because they happen to be recording at Sonic Ranch Studios, and you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how. But you guys have to keep building this and staying on top of it, getting the views up, having a reach, having an influence, having a reason why they tell the artist, yo, it's good for you to do this podcast because that's a bicultural thing where it taps into the Mexican community. You're going to get X amount of views. It's good press. You're dropping a song, a single. Let's make these runs. And that's why they do those things, right? But you guys have to keep pushing. Get the views up.
That's free game right there, dog. That's free game, Johnny.
Well, it's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, man.
Start doing your podcast in White Sands like Circle, baby, and just interviewing people.
Oh yeah.
With a little blanket and that's right.
Just flying around. Damn, dude. Man, Johnny. Got one question more. The Sober October. Is this a yearly thing? Do you try to do it every year?
I try to. I've drank maybe twice this month, so it wasn't a complete Sober October, but yeah, I try it. Dry January, Sober October. It's
good. There you go.
It's good to take a little break.
What kind of benefits do you think you get from that? Are you conscious of it? Like, do you get a little bit more clarity, wake up a little bit easier, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, everything, right? The weekends, it's, I like to indulge, so I'll go out. I love wine. I'll drink wine. I'll have good meals. Obviously when you're drinking a little bit, like, you're like, you want the burger. Yeah. You want the dessert.
Yes, sir.
So when I take a break from that, I tend to eat a little cleaner. I tend to work out on the weekends. So that just helps reset everything. But then again, I enjoy like a good glass of wine. The holidays are coming up, and I feel like that's 2 months of like indulging, right? So it's good to take a break before. And I like to gamify shit, like I said.
There you go.
So it's just good for me to take that break, and then January take that break again, and then the summer's hectic and all that. But yeah, I like that.
I'm gonna take Gamify, put that in my pocket, and I'm gonna take Crabs in a bucket. And I'm gonna put that in my pocket. I'm gonna take the whole interview, man. There's so much good shit here, dude. Thank you so much, Johnny. One more time. For the boy.
I like that.
The legend himself, man.
Yeah, I wish. But thank you guys. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for making the time.
For sure, dude. Thanks for having me. I had a good time.
It's an honor. Yeah, that applause is gonna turn into dogs barking at some point. We just need to upload it into the machine.
Really? That'd be
Yeah.
funny, actually.
Man,
I like that.
we'll get it fixed up. Hey man, but that's how we do it over here at the HQ. Legendary conversations only. Good conversation only. Make sure I didn't even think I said all this stuff in the beginning. Make sure that you guys show love to the platform. Housekeeping. Make sure that you guys find all of our full length episodes on YouTube. But if you also want to support the project even further, go check out the website, man. That shit was not easy to design. Go check it out. You can find all the episodes on there as well. If you're streaming this on your favorite platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, like it, save it, share it, whatever you guys can do to show love on those platforms, it goes a long way. But of course, if you always want to stay up to date with MF on the latest, we're the most active on the Instagrams, so you can follow us there at MF Pearl. Keep up with the podcast at MFHQ Live. But other than that, that's how we do it, folks. Every Wednesday, Legends Only in the building. Episode 37, Johnny Escalante, live at MFHQ.
Thank you, guys.